would be used to determine the flow, if it's active, blocked, or constrained on its way to be blocked, it's slowed. Outside of the design intent, the innovation has potential to be used in non-invasive detection of other physiologic fluid flow and in the treatment of other conditions and diseases. So here they're saying that from a healthcare perspective, shunt sense can lower overall costs by minimizing ER room visits, admissions, and all of these processes around suspected shunt failures. We asked if they were interested in starting a company. They said maybe, but they're not at that stage yet. There's other additional information. Here's the group of people that they say are inventors. Let's count them up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And it's the School of Medicine and the Bioengineering Department. This looks like, I can tell from the names here, these are not faculty members, these are students. And here they click through this. And here is where we stop with this, and I start sharing another document. And this is our innovation review form. And I haven't filled this out yet. So we've got 2 forms available online. And we started this second form, which we call the Innovation Disclosure Long Form, as a result of getting in these disclosures from students. So normally when we get a disclosure in from a faculty member, there's no clock ticking on when they're leaving the university. But with students, there really is a clock ticking. And what we wanted to see here, here's the normal end, where they're talking through like who did what. They're filling out their contributions and assignments. They're describing here what each person did and their contact information. The reason we wanted to, for the students, have them do the long form is to actually collect their true signature on the form. So there's a signature page that follows that they're saying that classic assignment language. I hereby assign all of my right, title, and interest in and to this intellectual property as defined by our IP policy to the University of Louisville Research Foundation, and agree to execute all documents as requested. So we get assignment from the students at a few different times. One, we get the general promise of assignment where they're signing a form that says, I understand that the innovations I come up with in this program are going to belong to University of Louisville Research Foundation. Then when they fill out the disclosure and they have something specific, they sign again and date it. And then when we actually file the patent application, then we have them sign the assignment document that's a little more specific, and it has the serial number and the title of the patent on it as well. So here's where we would go through this invention readiness level or innovation readiness level process, where we're looking at these 7 questions about patentability. And I'm going to ask for volunteers. Maybe you guys can start using the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself and have a discussion. I know this is hard over a Zoom call like this. It's not so easy. So maybe Vlad can help me by monitoring the chat. But what do you think about these first 2 questions? The invention readiness or the enforceability of the IP? So is the description complete, thorough, clear, meaningful, and the innovation reduced to practice versus merely a concept. Here, I would rate this one as yellow. I'm going to enable editing so I can type on here. Uh-oh.
So green would be go, go, go.
Green would be go, go, go.
Like
Yes.
invention is ready, ready to be patented.
Right. I would say this one is yellow. And the reason I would say it's yellow
But
is there are a number of questions.
okay, so if it's red or yellow, then you are gonna put there the reason and how do you advance it to become
Mm-hmm.
yellow or to become green.
Right.
Maybe red, what I understand, it is like somewhere in the very early stage, so that the researcher have to go back to the laboratory and work again. Um, maybe that's what I think.
Okay. And if I had more time, I would fill this out and I would put a couple of sentences more in here about what we still need to see. But they do have a clear product envisioned. And that's actually not always the case. So that's a very good plus for them. This one is really unknown. And here one would need to do a search. And we can talk about the search methodologies that people use at a future one, but a patent search normally would take, for an initial disclosure, 1 to 2 hours, where you would spend an hour or two just combing through and looking for what I call the closest prior art. And this is important not just to see if you're clear to move ahead, but then also as you're writing the patent and you're filling out that related intellectual property or related art section, that you include the references that you found here. And it will also be important that if you can, within the specification, you talk about how your innovation is different or more useful or unexpected compared to that reference. Because if you found the reference and you don't record it or report it, number one, that's the wrong thing to do. It can get you into trouble with the patent office. But also, even if you don't find it and report it, the patent examiner almost for sure is going to find it. They usually find things that you don't find as well and bring them up to you. But if you already have that argument made within your patent application, the patent examiner, you can refer back to it and just note that it's there in the specification and what paragraph or line it's in. So the team here, I would give them a yellow. Does anybody have any comments about this particular team and what you think is important about this team?
Well, I wrote a question on the chat. Do you have cases in the past where the list of inventors and their contributions they change over time? Like you have inventors, new inventors coming in, or maybe some who left the team and their contributions kind of change.
Well, I'm not sure that the contribution changes at the point in time where the innovation is made, but what you see as the innovation that you're moving forward toward with the patent office, that can change. So the patent office might say, well, that that method of detecting is already is already well known and well established. So the method of detection, we're not going to allow you to put into your claim. So your claim gets narrowed, and maybe one of the specific method of detection, not generally detecting it, but maybe one of the inventors that was originally on that list only did work on that very specific method of detection. And for that reason, because it's not going to be allowed by the patent office, that inventor could get removed.
Shalini, you have a question?
Yeah. Hi. My question is that just a couple of minutes ago, you were talking about putting in the prior art in the background section. So do you put in the details as the application number or the grant patent number, or do you just refer to it saying in one patent? Or
It's just the references, and I usually just refer to it by the person's last name. So I'll say Smith et al. From 2023 or whatever the reference is. Showed this, and our innovation is new on top of that, and we got surprising results because we didn't see what Smith saw, or for whatever reason. And another key point that I'm sure Shalini knows, but others on the call might not, is you never call it prior art. You always call it related art, because if you call it prior art, you've made it basically like a legal admission that you think it is relevant prior art, and that'll kill you. So that'll kill your patent. So don't call it prior art, even though when we talk about it in the office, almost everybody calls things of this nature prior art. But get in the habit of thinking about it as related art. That'll help you. One of the things that I was concerned about in reading this is all students. What happens at graduation? Are they still able to invest development, time, effort? Who would champion this? So that's another one.
Yeah. When graduation, it means that they're not part of the university anymore. And are they, so do they have a non-disclosure like agreement? Like after you graduate, you're not going to disclose any of these ongoing work?
That's a really good question. And I don't know the answer to that. So I'm going to find that out.
Yeah.
And the reason there, so thank you, Vlad, for pointing that out. The reason there is if they could, if there were any secrets or some secret sauce, they could leak that to a
Yeah,
competitor.
that's right.
What about, I'm also putting in here, what about a non-compete on this particular product or on this particular area? So I'll bring that up to our Office of General Counsel. Market poll, I saw this one as green. Green, but not clear this was verified.
Maybe they should not be allowed to graduate unless they sign an NDA.
No, you can't do that.
Be a problem. Yeah.
Okay. And then the market size and accessibility. the market is large, clear, and identified versus a brand new set of customers. I mean, I think it's very clear that this is likely green from an accessibility standpoint. With a market that clearly looks at shunt function. So this is not a new exercise for this patient population, right? So it's green from that perspective. And it's yellow from the perspective of number of shunt sense devices needed and the ROI, the return on investment potential. Work on financial modeling. So we would look at some sort of back of the envelope financial modeling of how much is it going to cost overall to develop this from a laboratory perspective, from the IP perspective, from perhaps the regulatory perspective. What is the total development cost? And then how are you going to get paid back that investment that someone needs to make? The other thing,
Laura,
somewhere.
Laura, can you share your screen again? I think maybe I've written something there. I think it froze.
Okay. Does that work?
You can try to unshare and then to share it again.
Can you see anything that I'm doing right now? No?
No.
I will unshare and reshare.
Okay, you unshare and can you share again?
Okay, yeah. Okay, do you see the green and the yellow?
Yeah, yeah, we can see it now.
Okay, so it was green because this market is clearly developed and people clearly have an interest in looking at shunt function. Sometimes inventors create what I call this field of dreams scenario. There was this famous movie that Kevin Costner was in called Field of Dreams, and he had this vision to create and build this really beautiful and impressive baseball diamond in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the field. And his mantra or something in his mind was telling him, if you build it, they will come. Meaning, like, if you build this stadium, you'll have plenty of fans and teams coming to play, etc. But he didn't have any place for people to park. He didn't have any place for, concessions and all the other things. So oftentimes these innovations are in a space where the market hasn't clearly stated that they're looking for solutions here, that they need what you actually are providing or that they want it. So that's one of the things that's really critical to look at with early stage innovations, because sometimes this might be the very first solution of its kind for this market. And just breaking through and accessing people to buy a solution to a problem that they don't perceive as that big of a deal or that big of a problem is very, very difficult. So you need to look at that closely.
So Laura, Laura, in a big university, usually research teams they tell a lot of people about their ideas. There are colloquiums, seminars, workshops. So a lot of students and faculty would learn about these inventions many of the details from this invention. They can even visit the lab. So
Mhm.
how do you protect, the leakage of these important details so that, it's not like a small company where they can keep all the secrets within their research group. But in a university, a lot of these things get, published or presented. How do you
That's
prevent
that's a really
the
good point.
leakage? Yeah.
And there in there's always a tension there because
Mm.
you want them to talk to other people because they
Yeah.
need to talk to other people to develop, to vet the idea, etc. So we give them tips and tricks as to what not to say and forms of communication not to use. So one of the one of the things you can tell them is try not to communicate over email. Do verbal conversations because those
Mhm.
are harder for somebody to pull up documentation later that you actually had this conversation, etc. Um,
Mhm. Good.
that's not the best way. A better way is that black box method that I showed you, leaving out one important detail that's going to be in your claimed invention. If you can figure out one important detail and just call it a new method of cooling or an existing method of cooling that nobody has thought of using for this particular area.
Mm.
Um, so you can find ways to talk about it that doesn't represent a disclosure. The other thing that you can counsel your people on is being very careful to talk only to people inside your university or inside that particular employer group. So if you're talking with a coworker or a colleague and you're both employed by the same institution, that is not a disclosure of any kind. That's protected information. Another way to protect the information is to put an NDA in place. That's often not happening at an academic to academic level. So I'd recommend, doing one of those other methods. Um, Another thing that is important to know or to note is that um, grant applications, while they're not public disclosures, they're often a disclosure made to a faculty member or an inventor's closest competition. The people who might know this field the best are going to be on their study sections reading their information. So the other way to protect the information is to go ahead and file a provisional patent application. And you can file a United States provisional patent application fairly cheaply. And then you could file a PCT application off of that United States provisional application and file in your own home country off of the PCT for most of you. I'm not sure if all of you as countries are in the PCT, but you should look into that route because for very little money for the 1 year window, you can get a big chunk of protection. Now, that comes at a price because PCT applications are more expensive to file than just filing in um, one country, a single country. Like a United States application is a few $1,000s to file, but a PCT application is typically 8 or 9,000 in filing fees to file it. Plus, then you have lawyer and attorney time to prep the application. But I do like using the provisional application as a method to have something on file so that they can go out and have more conversations and develop their innovation further before you have to think about that or worry about that.
So there's already some level of protection when you have this invention disclosure, and you
Yeah.
know It's like a record that the idea was already there.
Mhm. So I think the value prop here is green. Even we could probably pull something out from what they said about how shunt sense works better. I think the biggest values are to the hospital in not having patient complications, and of course to the comfort and care of the patient. And I would call this an incremental change because there are already methods to cool. It's an ice pack. And this is just an electronic means of cooling. Partnership possibility.
Mhm.
I'd again put that one in yellow. And I'd
So,
say that likely limited number.
so you're trying to help the inventors at the same time you're playing the role of devil's advocate in trying to,
And I would say perhaps engage in partners after patent filing to see if they want to sponsor research on the device.
Okay, Laura, we're running out of time, and so
Well, I'm done because that's
yeah,
the end.
but I would like to have a copy of this and kindly highlight those sentences that you have added to the invention disclosure, so that we can look at the feedback from the tech transfer office.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I will do that.
yeah, so yeah, thank you very much. And so for all the others, if you have any questions, okay, you can put this on our WhatsApp chat, okay, and I'll make sure that Laura gets it, and then she can respond to it. And we will also share the document that Laura was working on, and it shows the feedback from the tech transfer office on the invention disclosure. Okay.
And I see Shalini's, now that I was able to take my share screen off, I see Shalini's question I see it in a different light in writing here. Do I put in patent applications or grant numbers in the background section? If there was federal support used to create the innovation, then I put that in something called a government support clause that you'll see on a lot of US based applications. I'm not sure what your individual requirements are when you use federal funding from your country or from your government, if they have special requirements or strings attached that come with that funding. The United States government does. And so we have to put in a government support clause, this work was, and it's very rigid, but this work was supported by XYZ grant, and the number is right there.
Yeah, I don't think we're required to submit it, but we do anyway as a practice. At least my team does.
Okay. With
Okay.
US
Great.
federal funding from NIH or NSF, that's a requirement. But if you got money from like a patient advocacy group, like the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, that's not required to be disclosed.
Got it. Thanks.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah. Oh, Delini has a question.
Yes, thank you, Laura, for the nice explanation. I have one question about the provisional patent. And what happens, what if you can't secure a patent before the provisional patent time period ends? I mean, it's only valid for 1 year, if I'm correct?
Yep, it is. So what you can do, we use a refiling strategy. So provisional patent applications never become public. They never get
I see.
published
Okay.
anywhere. If your inventor hasn't yet written a paper or made a public disclosure on this, one possible strategy is to refile that provisional application with any additional updates or information that they have. And that'll start your clock ticking over again. Another strategy that I've seen used and we use sometimes is to file multiple provisionals along the way, especially if it's a rapidly advancing innovation. And then you wrap together all of these individual provisional applications into one non-provisional that you convert. But if you don't have a means of converting that application and you still want to potentially move forward on it in the future, the best case scenario is that your innovator hasn't disclosed to his collaborators something called an enabling disclosure. So holding back, that black box information.
Okay, we have 30 seconds to
Less than
go.
a minute, yes.
Yeah, 30 seconds to go. Please put your questions on our WhatsApp chat and we'll get Laura to answer it. Please open your cameras. We'll have picture. Okay. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, Guy, thank you very much. And I'm very happy to see all of you. And stay tuned for more updates on our program.